Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast, diving in to some stuff I got wrong. A little mea culpa and why I got it wrong. I've done some self-reflection, not too big of a man to realize some of my takes were off, but I realized why they were off, and we will dive into it all, starting with the Miami Dolphins and then some other quarterback talk. But first, some 3 and Out podcast. Subscribe wherever you may listen. Appreciate everyone. Hammer that subscribe button. Apple, Spotify, we got you covered. The Volumes YouTube page. Watch the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment on the channel. Appreciate you guys. TheVolume.com. We got merch. FlexFit hats. TheVolume.com. Go check out the merch. And a lot of football talk coming up. But first, do you know what I did last weekend? I told you. And I'm going to keep telling you. I went to a college football game. And I have gone to more events in 2023 than I have in recent memory. I've gone to baseball games. I've gone to basketball games. I've gone to multiple football games and several concerts because of my friends at Game Time. Go to your app store, iPad, phone, download the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time, and sign up. And your first pair of tickets, use their interactive map, whatever event you want to go to. Take a family member, take your wife, take your son, take a buddy, go have a good time, and do it on us. And use the promo code JOHN, John. Whoever your favorite football team is, college or pro, go to a game this fall. Go enjoy yourself and save a little money while you're at it, because Game Time is giving you $20 off your first pair of tickets by using the promo code JOHN. Don't even need a thank you. Just hammer that promo code JOHN. Game Time app, fastest growing ticketing app in America. One mistake I made coming into this season is something that I live by. The coaches in the NFL obviously outweigh coaching in other sports, right? I could win big with Steph Curry, LeBron. Doesn't mean I'm going to win the championship every year, but I'm not going to be a terrible coach if I have one of those guys, right? We saw LeBron have excellent teams with David Blatt, right? We saw Steph Curry win with Mark Jackson, right? You can win a lot of games in baseball or basketball if you got star players. Doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but for the most part, it's going to work. In football, scheming and X's and O's is such a prevalent part of every single play, let alone every single game, let alone every single season. It is a constant chess match between the coordinators. And in 2023, we just happen to have a lot of head coaches who operate as their team's coordinator, mainly on offense, but we have a couple on defense, Brandon Staley not going well, who directly impact the game, half the snaps of the 60 minutes every single weekend. So this year, I love teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And looking back, I shake my head. Like, everyone knew their offensive coordinator was terrible. I'm not even the biggest fan of their quarterback, but I trusted the brand. I'm like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they'll figure it out. Now, they had a lot of early injuries, but I don't care. They could, Jerome Bettis could walk through that door. Heath Miller could walk through that door. If Matt Canada's calling the plays, we got issues. Yet a team like I wasn't that high on, and mainly it was a pivot. Sometimes I like to short the masses. I was like, I don't see it with Miami. How do I not see it with Miami? I've followed Mike McDaniel's career since he showed up in San Francisco in 2017. I've gotten to know players on that team, let alone I've just know people that work in that building that swear by the guy as an offensive mind. Kyle Shanahan has publicly stated how important the guy was to his career, helping to influence the run game. A couple years ago, scheming Debo as a running back. His offensive prowess was well established as an assistant coach, let alone how special he's been getting Tyreek and Waddle through last year and then early on in this season. And then he adds Vic Fangio, who I freaking love Vic Fangio. He's easily a top 5 defensive coordinator. If you give him the right players, he'll probably have the number 1 defense in the league. So a sport that is predicated on having a good coach and good coordinators, and Mike calls the offense, he's the head coach, and obviously Vic calls the defense. I was like, I don't know, man. What was I thinking? How could I like the Steelers coming into this season more than the Miami Dolphins? And let's face it, I was biased. just based on my life. Because the majority of my life, the Steelers have been good, and the Dolphins, for the most part, have not. Which is stupid. Because I would definitely take McDaniel and Fangio right now over Tomlin and Matt Canada. And it's coming to fruition. And as I said on Monday night, the Steelers are, at best going to win like 9 games, and more than likely they'll be 7 or 8 wins, given all the injuries that are happening and clearly their coordinator. And Miami shows you that if you have a dominant offensive coordinator, and they do, Mike McDaniel is not giving speeches in the locker room like he's Bear Bryant or Nick Saban or Bo Schembechler. That's not his deal. But do you know what he is doing every single week? Drawing up all the freaking plays that get these guys wide open. Who took a quarterback that most of us had red flagged. I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. Small, not the greatest arm. Well, what did Tua do well at Alabama when he was surrounded by, one could argue, the greatest group of talented 4 wide receivers we've ever seen? All 4 guys went in the top 15. Hit a lot of big plays. Threw a lot of bombs. What do they do now? Run a lot of go routes. Obviously, his ability to move guys around, get guys in motion, and just the team speed with Waddle and Tyreek Hill is pretty special. But they have a guy who knows how to scheme an offense. And it's prevalent every single week they play. So when I look at the Miami Dolphins, coach, right now, their 2 guys, scheme-wise, are top-notch. Their skill positions, the 2 wide receivers are elite. And their quarterback is still to be determined, though he started extremely well, has proven when he has been healthy, he is very, very good going back to Alabama with talented wide receivers. Like, he knows how to get them the ball. Now, sometimes his arm strength can leave a little something to be desired, but let's face it, he doesn't play in Buffalo. He doesn't play in Kansas City. And I was looking at their schedule because I had to Google it, because a long-standing kind of topic with Southern football teams, but specifically the Miami Dolphins, because of the teams they play in their division, is they don't win a lot of games in cold weather situations. And I think they're like 8 or 9 straight losses in under 40 degrees temperature. Well, they have the opportunity. If you get the number 1 seed, you don't ever have to play in cold weather. And then I looked at their schedule, where usually, because of the division, you might get a late game in Buffalo, might get a late game in New England. That's not the case. Obviously, they just played in New England, right? They get the Jets late November, 11/24, which, could be pretty cold, but Aaron Rodgers nowhere to be found. They get at Washington the following week, 12/3. That could be really cold, tough defense. That could be a tough spot. And then a game that's got a chance, who knows? Maybe it's determining the number 1 seed. Maybe it's determining the 2 seed, but it's going to be a cold weather situation for the Dolphins, 12/31 at Baltimore. But they don't have as many cold weather games in November and December as I would have assumed before I clicked on their schedule today. So defensive coordinator, A+. Young offensive coordinator, I don't know how you wouldn't give him an A right now. The skill guys, A. Quarterback, listen, when he's been healthy, the one thing Dolphins fans would always push back is look at his numbers. And you get to a while, like, this is a production-based business. So not everyone's going to look pretty. Not everyone's going to look like Favre or Mahomes. Some guys, like Tua, don't look like that. But guess what? When you're throwing for 350, 400 yards every single week, getting the ball to your playmakers, that's really all that matters. It's the long-standing argument, and I think Tua's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but, like, if you surround a solid player with really good players and they know how to use them, that's the point of football, to win the games. And they're doing it in a very sexy way because of their team speed. So I underestimated Miami, and I clearly overestimated the Steelers. And I think it comes back to I didn't spend enough time coaching, coordinating. The Rams, same thing. I told this to Colin the other day. It's like, obviously, I'm not going to bet on 4th, 5th round picks until I see them play. Well, I'm a couple weeks in. The pass rusher the Rams have, Puka Nacua, like, they got some really good young players. But what do they have that's the most important thing? Their head coach is a dominant offensive play caller. And their quarterback is a $40 million player when healthy. He's a worthy, elite guy. He can go to a Pro Bowl on any given year. So they have a highly paid, highly talented quarterback with an elite play caller. That's the sport. That's 2023. Saban admitted this several years ago in college football. We're not going to win games 13-10 anymore. Those days are over. We have to score points. Why he started recruiting the Tua Tagovailoas, the Jerry Judys, the Jalen Waddles. He wanted those players because he needed explosive players on offense. Not that he didn't early on with Julio and Amari, but he started loading up. Now, this team doesn't quite look like that, but his mindset shifted, and the NFL mindset has clearly shifted. I still believe you can be a good head coach as a defensive coach, but I'd like you to be my defensive coordinator, right? And I'd like you to be a dominant scheme guy. And that doesn't guarantee you're going to have to win. Look at Vic Fangio, who clearly has been one of the best DCs over the last decade plus. Gets a head coaching job, they have no quarterback. Their offense is a joke. You're not going to win. It's really that simple. Brian Flores, proven to be a pretty good defensive coordinator. Got the Miami job. For whatever reason, he didn't like Tua, and their offense sucked. So the offense is so important. And that's the one thing when you're a CEO head coach, Tomlin, Harbaugh, Saleh now, your success is so predicated on who you hire, how good that guy is, and his impact on the quarterback. The Dolphins never have to worry about that because the guy they're paying to be their head coach directly impacts the quarterback every single day of the week and obviously every Sunday. Same with the Rams, same with the 49ers, same with the Chiefs. Same with all these good teams. So I wish I could have a redo because I'm better than that. And it's too much of a coaching league to ever, not realize when you're making early season picks or kind of trying to prognosticate how something's going to play out by not just going all in on the top coaches who specifically call plays now. We're back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL. With code JOHN, J-O-H-N, the crown is yours. And thinking about quarterback issues, and you could be like, well, what about Denver? I think the problem with that is, and I think you saw with Deshaun Watson, I think Stefanski's pretty good. I do. Obviously, Sean Payton has a long resume. But I've been saying this forever in the NBA. There are 5 to 7 guys that you feel really good about giving the max amount of money. And in the NBA, the top contracts, right, after your 4th year, after your 8th year, whatever, are slotted, whether it's $150 million or $300 million or whatever the numbers are. Yet 20 to 25 guys get those contracts. And then the majority of the NBA teams and all these fans are like, my team has no chance to win. Well, of course not. You're paying guys max money who aren't max players, right? If I got LeBron or I got Curry or I got Giannis or Jokic, they're worth every penny. They're worth the max amount of money that I can pay them. But if you have a guy who is not on their tier and you're paying the same contract, I have a huge advantage over you. These are salary cap leagues. And in the NFL now, the amount of quarterbacks making just insane amount of money is really high, right? From Mahomes to Allen, now to Burrow and Lamar, to Jalen, to Herbert. It's grown. Kyler, obviously Deshaun, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, to Dak and Kirk Cousins. When you pay these guys, even if the salary cap goes up, and the GMs and the people around the team always love saying, well, the salary cap's going to rise, it's not going to be as crazy of an impact. That is true, but it's still a big impact on your salary cap when you pay a guy at minimum double what the next highest paid guy on your team makes. If you have a $20 million guy on your team, and especially if you have a rookie quarterback, that guy's going to be the highest paid guy on your team. So once you start paying a quarterback $20 or $45 to $50 million, he's going to more than double typically your highest paid player, unless you have a Nick Bosa, a Joey Bosa. There was a small percentage of players making that $25 to $30 million. So when you watch the Browns struggle, their only chance to be good, obviously, and they have a really good roster, even though they lost Chubb and had a bunch of injuries. Without Chubb, I think they'll still be okay because Ford will probably be a good player. Myles Garrett, they have a ton of impact Pro Bowl level guys. But if Deshaun Watson is going to play this season like the 15th or 16th best quarterback in the NFL, they're going to have an up and down season because they're paying him to play like the 4th best quarterback in the league, right? Same thing with the Denver Broncos. I've heard a lot of this, like, it's not all Russ's fault. The defense sucks. Agreed. Their defense the other day was abysmal. It was embarrassing, especially a team that had one of the better defenses in the league last year. But when you're paying a quarterback that much money, you're expecting him to be a Pro Bowler. Now, the thing with Russell now, we have last season and this season. When he starts, they're 4-13. So listen, you can tell me quarterback wins and losses is not a stat that should go on the quarterback. Yet every time I look at a good quarterback, their win-loss record is really good. Like, say what you want about Josh Allen. Shitty first game, and it was really bad. What did he do? Bounce back, play the Raiders. Looks like the best player in the league. And I just think when you're paying these guys this amount of money, it's no different for the position players. When you go all in, and you saw it last night on full display with TJ Watt, and you've seen it for a couple of years with Minkah Fitzpatrick, they give these guys premium dollars. They need them to be premium players, and they constantly are. The Cleveland Browns draft him number 1, pay him a shitload of money, and Myles Garrett is elite. You're like, you don't even think about it, right? You do not even think about it. And Tyreek Hill with the Devontae Adams, every time you're stepping on the field, that guy is going to play like one of the best players in the league. And if he's on, I don't care who else you're on the field with, more than likely he's going to be the best or second best player on the entire field, including the other team. And I think some of these quarterback issues right now you're seeing is that Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, you saw it last year with Kyler. Once I give you, I have a pet peeve. I hate the word bag because no one that makes hundreds of millions of dollars gets paid in bags. This isn't the mafia. This isn't SEC recruiting. We're paid in direct deposits and the money gets taxed. I'd love to get paid in bags, but even if I did, you can't buy anything with bags. You can't show up to a car dealership with $200,000 in cash and say, give me the car. Right? That's not the way the world works. So that's always been a pet peeve of mine. I get the kids love it, and the media loves it too. I think we should rename it direct deposits. And once you start giving these guys enormous direct deposits, you need them to live up to the money. And some sports are different, right? I understand in baseball, it can be difficult because most of the time you're signing a player, he's typically 29, 30, 31, 32 years old. There's a decent chance his best years are behind him. But if you want that player, the going rate's $200, $300 million. And you don't have a choice. It's why Bryce Harper a couple years ago was such a unique case because he was only like 26, 27 years old, right? Most of the time when these guys hit, look at Aaron Judge, was over 30. And in football, you pay a guy relatively young. The Deshaun situation, like I do defend Russell Wilson, or at least the transaction that went down. I would have made the move too. Howie Roseman attempted to make the move. Most GMs, given a desperation spot for a quarterback, would have been very, very interested in Russell Wilson and then extended him. The Deshaun thing was a little bit more of a red flag. Everything he had going off the field, his lack of what felt like contrition to any self-inflicted decisions. Part of being a good quarterback is decision-making on and off the field. I can call Russell kind of corny. I never worry about him not being all in and making good decisions, right? In terms of his health, his wellness, his family. Like, do I trust Deshaun Watson when he leaves my building? You would say, not really, right? Kyler, while he's not a troublemaker, his decision-making in terms of being all in with football have been more than questioned. The Cardinals put that thing in his contract, which is basically unprecedented for a guy getting an astronomical amount of money at that position. The last thing you ever do is worry about max quarterbacks in terms of their study habits, most of them, right? I bet if we went through, they would say, guy's a great studier, right? Mahomes, I know the Chiefs love his study habits. Allen, Herbert, Lawrence, Jalen Hurts. I mean, honestly, a big part of the Jalen Hurts contract, because he was kind of a one-year wonder, was we're betting on the guy, right? You look at Deshaun Watson, that's who you bet on? And I saw Colin talk about it today, that like the Cleveland Browns, man, it's a classic Cleveland Browns type move. And the only reason he's there is because they were the only team willing to give him that contract, which David Tepper, who his ownership is still more in question with how good the Panthers are ever going to be, he did make the right decision where he said, no, we are not giving you that contract. Now, is Bryce Young ever going to be good? I don't know. They got a long way to go. They need to get him a lot of help. I don't know if Frank's any good, but I never would have wanted any part of that situation. But that thing is just, it's aging worse by the week. And last but not least, I've watched a lot of college football this year. I knew coming into the season how talented these quarterbacks were. It's even more than living up to the hype, right? Caleb is, he's one of the best prospects I've ever seen, right? Right there with Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Cam, just given his size. There's a short list of just all-time great prospects. And he basically was an established number one pick coming into this season, and he's doing nothing to slow that down. Drake Maye is very, very highly viewed around the league. Michael Penix, I think, was viewed a little bit as a one-hit wonder, but also was like last year was really, really impressive. He's doubling down on that. And one knock on him was he's had some knee injuries. So I think right now, and I'm putting Shedeur in his own category because I'm just going to assume until he tells me otherwise that he's going to stay for 2 years with his dad and with Travis Hunter. Because, listen, I think there's a decent chance. I'm not trying to, pee on anyone's parade here. But, Deion might be 2 and done there, right? When Shedeur, when Shiloh, when Travis leave, then he just, goes to greener pastures. And listen, I'm not acting like Boulder, Colorado. That place isn't sweet, cool place to coach. But these SEC schools, these people are going to come calling with $12 to $15 million. I promise you it's happening. So Shedeur, I would put him in that class. But until I hear from, listen, he's said nothing one way or the other, but I think it's fair to assume that the loyalty of kind of that group. I do think there's some other guys that have thrown their hat into the mix. And a big part of this NFL season is like, well, if you suck, there are all these other quarterbacks kind of floating out there, right? Beside Caleb, Drake Maye, and now Penix. Bo Nix had an awesome season last year. He looks every bit as good this year. And guess who they play this week? Where I don't know if you saw the headline, 9.3 million people watched Colorado State, making it ESPN's most watched game by a wide margin. A lot of people are watching Colorado. And a big reason for that is Deion Sanders, right? So guess what's going to happen when Oregon plays Colorado? A lot of people are going to be watching. And it's not just us fans. This is where the GMs are going. So the amount of eyeballs that are just on Colorado, they're going to be right there on Bo Nix. And he's got a great opportunity to, he's playing Penix later this season. He can really establish himself as a first-round pick. I know people in the league last year that thought if he would have come out, that he would have been a fringe, top 40 pick. He's doing nothing to change that now. If anything, he's just enhancing it. So, listen, all eyes are always going to be on Shedeur in Colorado, but whoever is playing that team, it's like in 2 weeks, Caleb plays them, right? And when you play Colorado, a lot of people are paying attention. And the other guy that is just a fascinating case study because he's older is Sam Hartman. And he would have been a guy that probably goes in the 5th, 6th, 7th round if he would have came out this year. A lot of guys in his situation, Wake Forest, come out, right? Get drafted in the late rounds, whatever. Start your NFL career. He became such a highly valued commodity in the transfer portal. Florida was offering him millions. Notre Dame, who knows how much they're paying him. And he's gone there, and he's been fucking awesome. And now they're playing Ohio State. And when I think of Notre Dame, when I was a kid, they were Alabama, right? They were Ohio State or Michigan. They were Georgia. They were winning a lot of big games. When I think of Notre Dame now, I feel like they lose a lot of big games. Well, if you finally get a legit quarterback who's an NFL guy and you go and beat Ohio State, he clearly has helped himself early on in the season. They haven't really played anybody. Now it's about to get real. They're going to play USC and obviously Ohio State this week. If you have one of those games, 2 weeks against those two teams where you're in the high 60s, throwing several touchdowns and playing winning football, I think we start talking about him as definitely a top 50 prospect. So we already have 3 guys who are big-time prospects. Like Caleb Williams is like Trevor Lawrence, who that draft now looks really shitty. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, even Mac Jones doesn't look great. Well, a lot of those guys didn't have much sample size in college. That ain't the case with this group. All these guys are going to have long resumes of throwing a bunch of touchdowns and playing for a long time at a really high level. And now all these guys, Bo Nix, Sam Hartman, Penix, Caleb, Drake Maye, probably not as much, but who knows? They haven't lost yet, are competing for playoff spots. So they're going to be playing in these games that millions of people are watching. All these GMs are going to attend. I was texting with a buddy that works for ESPN, and he's out here because the Giants are staying, and he's staying with the Giants. And we were talking about in the offseason. I'm like, get, Joe Shane, we'll go play some golf when you guys come in. And I text him like, hey, I couldn't make it there. He's playing golf right now. But he's like, Shane went up to UW. Now he's, Washington has like a elite pass rusher. So you don't just go to the school to only scout quarterbacks. And people often ask, like, do you get, when you're a college scout, do you just scout positions? You scout everybody. So if I go into USC, I'm scouting all their pro prospects. So when you go to these games, the other, kind of old adage that is still a very, very emphasized thing in every scouting department, if you're going to put grades on draftable quarterbacks, you have to see them play in person. So the amount of scouts that are watching all these guys play in person is probably just higher than normal, given there are so many guys across the country that you got to get your scouts to all these different games. And luckily, because a lot of them are playing each other, you can bang it off. Like when Notre Dame plays USC, I would imagine every team's going to be represented. This week, Ohio State, Notre Dame, I would imagine every team's going to be represented. Colorado, like I know this, if I was a GM, I would have to have a scout at those two games. We have to have representation at Colorado, Oregon, and Notre Dame, Ohio State. We cannot have someone not at that game. I remember Veach told me years ago, it's like mandatory that someone goes to the SEC championship game. Just too many NFL players. And that's what a lot of these games feel like, even with the quarterbacks. And I don't care if Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, that's the team you work for. You still got to scout these guys, because in a couple of years, look at Trey Lance. A couple of years later, he's available. Zach Wilson might be on a different team next year, right? Justin Fields might be on a different team. Things change fast in the NFL. So you watch, check the internet, come this weekend. The list of teams and scouts and executives at these games, it's going to be fucking nuts. And oftentimes in big games, you'll be like, 10 teams are here. And, one of the media members for the college or the SID for that given college will tweet it out, and the teams will. I think some of these games are going to have minimum 25 teams. And like I said, I don't even think it's crazy talk to go, every team should be represented. You're probably not doing your job if you're not going on the field, scouting live. I think you got to be in attendance at these games.